In the high society circles of 19th century England, a nervous breakdown wasn't solely treated with a prescription, but also with a rural retreat. You were sent to the countryside to sit in silence and endure the most terrifying ordeal known to the Edwardian gentleman, the formal visit. This is the world of Hector Hugh Munro, better known by his pen name, Saki. Saki lived a double life, a polished socialite by day and a writer of delightfully cruel stories by night. He knew that beneath the starched colors and polite tea-time chatter of the English gentry lay a deep well of boredom and a wicked appetite for deception. Today, we're stepping through the open window. It begins with a man seeking a nerve cure and ends with a reminder that in the hands of a bored 15-year-old girl, romance and tragedy are just tools of the trade. Enter Frampton Nuttall. Frampton is in the countryside on a cure for his nerves, armed with letters of introduction from his sister. To him, these neighbors are strangers. To the neighbors, he is just another social obligation to be endured. He is met by Vera, a very self-possessed young lady of 15. Her role is to keep him entertained until her aunt, Mrs. Sapleton, comes down. For Frampton, this is a chore. For Vera, it's an opportunity. Frampton began to talk, not about the weather or the scenery, but about the only thing he knew, his illnesses. He detailed his diet, his sleep patterns, and the specific nerve tonics he was taking. In an era of stiff upper lips, Frampton was an oversharer, a man so desperate for a connection that he forgot the rules of polite society. Vera simply watched. She saw a man who was easily startled, a man who relied on the kindness of strangers, and, most importantly, a man who was incredibly easy to fool. Vera explained that her aunt would be down soon. To Frampton, the large French window standing open was just a draughty architectural oddity on a cold October afternoon. But Vera saw his curiosity. She leaned forward and asked, "Do you know many of the people round here?" Vera leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hum. "You may wonder," she whispered, "why we keep that glass door wide open on an October afternoon. Out through that window, exactly 3 years ago to this day," Vera said, her voice dropping to a jagged edge, "my aunt's husband and her 2 young brothers went off for their day's shooting. They never came back. In crossing the moor to their favorite snipe-shooting ground, they stepped into a treacherous piece of bog. A summer of rain had turned the earth into a hungry, bottomless throat. It swallowed them whole, Mr. Nuttall. No bodies were ever recovered. That was the dreadful part." Vera's voice faltered with an eerie tremor. "And the dog, a little brown spaniel, it went down with them. Poor aunt always thinks that they will come back some day and walk in at that window just as they used to do. That is why the window is kept open every evening till it is quite dusk. Do you know, sometimes, on still, quiet evenings like this, I almost get a creepy feeling that they will all walk in through that window." The tension is broken when Mrs. Sapleton finally sweeps into the room. She offers a breezy apology for being late, but then she looks toward the open window with a bright smile. I hope you don't mind the open window. My husband and brothers will be home directly from shooting, and they always come in this way." Frampton turned to Vera, seeking a sympathetic glance for the mad aunt. But Vera is staring out through the open window with a dazed horror in her eyes. In a chill managed by fear, Frampton swung round in his seat. "Here they are at last!" cried the aunt. In the deepening twilight, 3 figures were walking across the lawn towards the window. They carried guns under their arms. One has a white coat hung over his shoulders. A tired brown spaniel keeps close at their heels. A young voice sings, "Bertie, why do you bound?" To Frampton Nuttall, the dead had returned. He didn't wait for an explanation. He bolted from the house in a blind, shivering panic, narrowly avoiding a collision with a cyclist on the drive. When the hunting party walks through the door perfectly alive. "I expect it was the spaniel," said Vera calmly. "He told me he had a horror of dogs. He was once hunted into a cemetery somewhere on the banks of the Ganges by a pack of pariah dogs, and had to spend the night in a newly dug grave with the creatures snarling and grinning and foaming just above him, enough to make anyone lose their nerve." Saki ends the story with one of the most famous lines in literature. Romance at short notice was her specialty. Saki does not label Vera's impromptu pranks and storytelling a lie. He also reminds us of the power of setting a narrative in this masterpiece of literary history. Hector Hugh Munro lost his mother in early childhood and was raised by stern aunts in Devon, who would later be the inspiration for his satirical characters. He was a homosexual, albeit secretly, at a time when such relations were considered a crime. He volunteered as a trooper during the First World War and was killed by a German sniper while sheltering in a shell crater in France. His famous last words were, "Put that bloody cigarette out."